Hello, Team PHS, and welcome to our August staff meeting. For those of you I have not met, my name is Cameo Zender, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer with Pediatric Home Service. We have much rich content for our quarterly updates, so let's get started. I want to take a moment to remind everyone that the Joint Commission is due on-site for survey any day. This includes all of our locations except for our new locations in Ohio. As a reminder, this is an unannounced survey, meaning we will get notification at 7:30 the morning of their arrival. We anticipate them being on site for at least 3 days. Please remember to wear your name tags, and it's okay if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer. Simply respond that you're unsure, but know where to find the answer, and then go and seek it out. If you have any questions on the survey process, please reach out to a member of our clinical quality team. Our focus today, or my focus with you today, is on processes and outcomes, and more specifically on our customer-facing and enabling processes. The patient care experience in the center is the core, the number one, the big kahuna process at PHS. As I like to think about it, it is our mission in process form. And similar to the way that we wrap around our children and our families with our services, the patient care experience is wrapped by enabling processes to make sure everything works well together. Those enabling processes include demand generation, revenue cycle management, and a newly defined and designated process of supply chain management, which we'll talk about more in a little while. To note, these 4 processes are also unique in that all or a portion of the process activities take place in our individual markets and locations. In contrast, remaining PHS processes, which include strategy development, human resources, finance, IT, legal and compliance, and corporate development, predominantly occur or are led from the Minneapolis office. And we'll cover those in more detail at a later date. Processes are important, but they don't have meaning. We don't know how or when to take action until we have outcomes. And when we think of outcomes, we also need to think of balance to ensure we're measuring ourselves against 4 critical factors. Those include employee engagement. What is the workforce telling us? Customer satisfaction. How well do we serve our customers, and how do we know? Operational excellence. How effectively do we perform our work as compared to how much work are we doing? And financial performance. What value are we creating for the organization and its stakeholders? Let's take a few minutes to walk through the customer-facing and enabling processes I highlighted earlier to show how outcomes help us to take action. First, starting with demand generation. Judy Giel leads our demand generation process. With her team, she's developed several outcomes, starting with a quarterly survey to measure satisfaction among our referral sources. These are great results so far, coming in at 97% of an 80% target. But just so I'm transparent, we're in the beginning stages of that, and to date, we haven't reached all of our referral sources yet. So definitely we'll keep aiming well above that 80% target, but we have more people to hear from. In addition, we're measuring the output of our outreach efforts, moving from a prospect to a new referral in the door. You'll see variants that we have here in targets by each market. These are intentional and based on current market share and opportunity. I'm also really pleased with the recent changes made to measure our success in providing comprehensive care, really honing in on measuring ourselves against patients who have the need for our services. We're not at target yet, but this is much more meaningful data for our customer-facing leaders and teams to move us from the current level of 22% conversion to the target of 25%. Moving on to the patient care experience. Historically, we've done a really good job at PHS measuring on our patient care experience, so many of these outcomes are likely familiar to you. I'll highlight here the HCN, or home care nursing, for some of you in other regions more commonly referred to as private duty nursing. Our current shift percentage comes in at 87%. We're seeing month over month increases in turnover of our field nurses as more employment opportunities open up for those nurses in the current state of COVID, with more hospitals hiring than they were during the height of COVID last year. This metric is an example of actionable data in which this outcome, along with others, triggered a dedicated initiative to improve nurse retention and increased shift fill to improve our patient care experience. That initiative is well underway with Lindsay and her team. Included here also is contribution margin. While this is not a new metric or outcome, it's not one we've discussed broadly. At its most basic level, contribution margin is a financial metric that tells us how much value we create or bring back to the organization after customer-facing and customer-enabling costs are taken against the revenue generated. We have a blended target of 31.5% across the organization, and current results come in at 28.6%. And here, the higher the number, the better. As I've said before, we can all make a difference here and in all of our outcomes by just being really smart about our day-to-day work and asking ourselves where we can work more efficiently, where the work no longer brings value to ourselves or to our customers, and just challenge each other to get better every day. Just a note, I should mention the numbers that I've shared here are June year-to-date results. So as of this recording, we didn't have all July results in place yet, so just wanted to give that piece of information. And now on to revenue cycle management. As demand generation is the front book end to the patient care experience, I think of revenue cycle management as the back book end to the patient care experience. Revenue cycle management really and its outcomes measure the quality of our processes to book revenue, bill for services, and collect payments. The outcome targets for these services range quite widely today from location to location, but with the goal to bring all locations to a single aggressive but achievable target, with DSOs coming down to 30 days and quality of revenue, or the amount of money that we have to adjust for various reasons because we're unable to collect payment from the payer, to 3%. And Christy Bessie and her teams are really working hard to achieve those consolidated or enterprise-wide targets by learning and sharing best practices across our locations so we can bring some of those higher days and higher percentages in line through best practices. And now, last but not least, supply chain management. As recently communicated, we have defined a new core process at PHS, referred to as supply chain management. While the activities of planning, sourcing, packaging, delivering, and returning were well supported and well designed as a single shop business, taking PHS to scale in multiple shops requires a unique set of practices and skills and aligned processes that are designed to be under single ownership and that have the ability to influence the outcomes we want to achieve. So here with supply chain management, a key outcome is reducing COGS supplies as a percent of revenue, which is simply what we pay for the products needed by our kids in comparison to the revenue that those products generate. Right now, we're at a level of 59.3% and have a target of 48.6%. That's a pretty big miss. And of course, we're aware of it. And a common or the most significant reason is just a miss in timing between the initiatives that will help us to reduce that COGS rate against the timing in which those savings were budgeted. But still definitely a key focus for the organization, and multiple tactics occurring there, from consolidating contracts to looking at other ways that we can streamline service offerings or product offerings with, of course, the customer first in mind there, as well as looking at other ways we can improve or think about our services And one I also would like to highlight there is the early implementation of dropship. In many of our markets, dropship is a growing or newer way in which we get products to our customers. And I think it's a great example, before I wrap up, to highlight where historically, again, in several of our locations, we were resistant to dropship, and myself included there, out of concern that it would erode the patient care experience. But when we took a step back, we actually learned that based on spikes in supply order volumes during different periods of the month, we actually had extended delivery windows and had ourselves inadvertently decreased the patient experience. So by bringing in dropship, we are able to reduce the time from the time the patient requests the service or product to the time it arrives at their door. And that's really important to our customers, to have consistency and just quick delivery and accurate delivery of those products. Without a doubt, there have been bumps and will be bumps in this and any new initiative, but I'd like to say thank you. My hat's off to the many people involved in implementing dropship delivery methods across our locations. For those locations who already had common practice, for sharing your experience with us and doing all of this in a way that, again, ensures a great customer experience while optimizing our own people and our own processes while saving costs. It's a great example. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. And now I'm sure I've totally overrun my time, so I will send it off to the next person. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. I'm Rick Mueller, your IT Director for Pediatric Home Service, and I just wanted to provide a couple updates on both Project Unicorn and our ServiceNow tool for IT. First, Project Unicorn. A lot has happened over the last few months. We've made some great progress on the overall Project Unicorn timeline. However, we realized that it was more important for us to get this implementation right than to impose some artificial timeline on it. So we made the correct decision to break up the Project Unicorn implementation into each of its separate systems so that we can drive the most value for the systems that provide the best return for us. So I wanted to provide a quick update on each of those systems. First, Sugar CRM, which is our outreach enablement tool, will be fully functional by the end of this month, or 9/1. We're just wrapping up some of the migration and upgrades of that platform and looking forward to it enabling our outreach teams. MD Clarity, which is our revenue cycle management tool for all of our EHRs, is going through some data testing and validation processes right now, and we look forward to setting a time frame for the go live very, very soon. My PHS portal and online ordering, which will allow our customers and patients to be able to reorder their supplies no matter the EHR that they're a part of, is currently going through a platform upgrade this week, and we are also going to be launching another version here in about a month that will reduce some of its dependency on CPR Plus, which is the EHR used in our Minneapolis and Milwaukee branches. NetSuite, or as we sometimes call it, NetSuite Phase 2, which focuses on supply chain management, we're going through the process of analyzing those workflows across multiple EHRs to determine the value that that platform will bring and set appropriate timeframes once we've gone through that work. And then lastly, but probably the biggest tentpole in the project is our Brightree and MyUnity implementations. A lot of discussion, a lot of really good analysis of our processes that exist across our organization and identifying synergies that we can implement across our different markets. Once that part is accomplished, we've taken a look at the gaps that exist within the system that we can focus our attention on to really bring value to the implementation when it occurs. We've yet to set a refined timeline for implementation, but we're still making great progress, and I thank everybody that's involved with the implementation thus far. Next, ServiceNow, which is our ITSM tool, or IT Service Management Platform, has been a shift in the way that we've been able to deliver help desk and other service within the IT department to you and the organization. what we focused first on is our break fix incidents or incident management, as well as the IT work requests. And I wanted to provide some clarity to you on the difference between the two. When you log into ServiceNow, as you see in the below graphic, you have the option to either put in an IT work request or to create an incident. An incident or a break fix incident is something that you have today that's working today or should be working today, and it's not. It's broken, and you want it fixed. And you kind of want it fixed quickly in order to get back to work. So that's why we've defined service level agreements with each of those break fix incidents. So depending on the priority that you choose within the platform and then the impact that that incident has on the organization, we'll be able to determine an SLA that at most is 24 hours, but we aim to resolve most incidents much before then. And actually, over the last couple of weeks, we've been able to adhere to our service level agreement with the organization 100% of the time. So it's been a great step forward for our help desk. The other side is an IT work request, and that's any move, add, change, or deletes. It's the things that you want, but you don't have today, that will help you do your job better. While they are prioritized for our department, there isn't an SLA assigned to them. So if you are looking for something different, a new keyboard, an upgraded sit-stand station, a second monitor, things like that, a headset, put those into the IT work request bucket, and that allows us to prioritize the two differently, so that we're focusing on the things that you were expecting to work but aren't today first, and then getting onto the value adds secondly. And of course, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to Jorge or myself or anyone in IT, and we're happy to help. And we're excited for what this tool will not only bring to the IT department, but also we've got some plans for ServiceNow for the organization more broadly too. Lastly, I'd like to toss it over to Joe for the next update. Thank you.
Hi all, welcome to the August all-staff meeting. I'm Joe Dietlein. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Pediatric Home Service. I am coming at you from the Milwaukee office. What I love about this office is just our bucolic setting that we have. We also have a family of cranes that visits us occasionally. I'm hoping perhaps they'll make a guest appearance while I'm talking to you. I am going to spend a few minutes talking to you about corporate development, which is my area of responsibility, specifically focused on de novos and acquisitions. So last time we got together, we were fresh off of the acquisition of Central Ohio, so I kind of want to re-announce that acquisition and say welcome to the Central Ohio and Advanced Medical teams. We're getting on 100 days of having those teams as part of the PHS family. They came with a number of locations in Ohio and allowed us to extend the PHS footprint throughout the state of Ohio, and they came with a passion and expertise for taking care of our complex kiddos. So it's been great to have them on board, and the integration is going smoothly. Like I said, day 85, there we go, of integration. In Ohio River Valley, we're also focused on the Frankfort office opening or de novo launch. The office is in place, our staff is rolling, and our doors open date is in Q3, dependent on our licensing. So excited to have that grand opening. I know we've been working on it thanks to the team in Covington that's been leading the charge. In Texas, our San Antonio team, so hard to believe, but it's going on a year since the formerly Alliance crew joined us, and our San Antonio team got up and running. We're transitioning that integration to business as usual. Love that team and all the work that they've been doing. Thank you so much. Especially looking at our Austin de novo launch. So the San Antonio team has been working to get Austin up and running. That is in a similar state as Frankfort. We are dependent on some payer contracts for our launch date, so we're saying September, and we are optimistic that we'll get everything done to launch in that month. Texas Infusion, we have made progress. However, sometimes it feels like a broken record to make our updates on this project. We're very dependent on permits from the City of Houston, and by permits I mean good old, construction permits. We have a nursing licensure in place that we're very focused on passing a survey for. I know our leaders in Texas, Cliffic Guidry and Mandy Owens, are really focused on continuing to move us forward, and I so appreciate it. We're excited to bring infusion to the state of Texas, and we will in the next 6 months. A little slower than we wanted to do, but we're continuing to make progress. Lastly, Minnesota and Wisconsin. So we did launch the infusion service in Wisconsin earlier this year. Our second nurse is on board. Welcome, Jeanette. We're focusing on really building momentum in that service line by getting on board with more payer contracts and focusing on our demand generation. For the patients that we have served, the feedback's been great, and the referral sources love the fact that we're offering the new service. Finally, pipeline. I wanted to make a comment here. 2021 is really strong. Pipeline is the word that we use to refer to our upcoming or in progress opportunities, and they're confidential, so I can't give you a whole lot of detail on them. But just want you to know that we have a strong pipeline through the end of the year. I expect to be, making some announcements over the next couple of months. I'll knock on wood, as I ask you to do as well. But it's going to be an exciting fourth quarter. So thanks for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the staff meeting. I'm available for questions. Reach out anytime. Have a great day. Bye.
Hello. For those of you who I've not yet had the pleasure to meet, my name is Jamison Young, and I am the Chief Financial Officer for the organization. Similar to prior quarterly staff meetings, we wanted to take a little bit of time today to update you on our financial performance year to date. These results will be inclusive of our results through the June 30th period. And for those of you who were here and able to listen to our last quarterly staff meeting update, you may recall that we started out the year behind our budgeted expectations. That does continue through our year-to-date results through June. However, on a positive note, we did have a much stronger second quarter than we did our first quarter results, and are starting to see some improvement. Certainly optimistic that that improvement is going to continue through the remainder of the year. But as I said, wanted to give you an update as to our results through the June 30th period. So consistent with the information that we shared last time, we have seen both revenue shortfalls to budget, as well as some increased cost, in particular on our cost of goods supply line, that have really been the driving force behind our budget miss year to date. So from a revenue perspective, we ended the first 6 months at just under $70 million in revenue across the enterprise. That is just a little over 4% worse than what we had expected from a budget perspective, and just about 3% better than where we were prior year. And that's really a key differential in terms of where we were in the previous update compared to where we are today. We really were lagging sort of at or behind prior year in our first quarter update, and have seen that improve such that we're now showing growth over prior year of about 3%, which is certainly a positive trend. In terms of the market breakdown, that is reflective of Minneapolis and Milwaukee being behind budget by about 1.2%, although better than prior year for those two locations at 4.3%. Texas, again, has been a driver relative to the revenue miss all year. They are trailing about 13% behind in aggregate across the entire state, although, again, 4.7% better than where we were last year combined. So certainly trending positive there relative to prior year as well. And the Ohio River Valley, which is now inclusive of our Covington location as well as all of our new Ohio locations, are cumulatively behind budget by just over 5%, and actually behind prior year by about 3.6%. That's really being driven by the performance in Covington. There's been some challenges with the Cincinnati Children's Hospital there, and we are trailing a bit behind where we were at this point last year. Again, another factor that we've seen that's driven performance to budget has been our supply costs in our cost of goods sold line, which has trended, behind where we expected from a budget perspective all year. But again, we've seen some improvement in that in the second quarter as compared to the first. And I think that's really reflective of the work that's been done, the new contractual arrangements that have been in place, or have been put in place, to improve our purchasing results across the organization. So we are trending better than we were in 2020 by a little over 0.5%, but still behind where we plan to be from a budget perspective by about 3.5%. Certainly expect that to continue to improve as the year goes on and as we have more time under our new contractual relationships with our vendors. All of that has resulted in EBITDA being about $2.2 million behind budget, but again, relatively even with where we were at in prior year. And that's certainly a significant improvement to what we saw in the first quarter of the year. So certainly expecting that to continue and for EBITDA performance to be improved over prior year when we do finish up the year. The next slide really just talks through the significant impacts, again, that we've seen both compared to budget and to prior year. We do have just about a $3.1 million revenue miss across the organization, and that is leading to a $2.2 million EBITDA miss. Again, we've had revenue shortfalls relative to our expectations pretty much across the board, and our COGS supplies have been higher than what we anticipated from a budget perspective. Those two things have been offset by better management of our operating expenses relative to what we had planned in the budget. Certainly thank everyone for their efforts there and encourage that to continue as we look to manage to any revenue or gross margin shortfalls that we might have for the remainder of the year. And then from a prior year perspective, again, really we are relatively flat to prior year across the organization. That's being driven by fairly low growth rates in terms of the revenue on an aggregate basis. And we do have some increased enterprise expenses on a year-over-year basis. But again, managing to those fairly well, and that's really what's allowing us to keep pace with where we were last year. Certainly expect as the third and fourth quarter comes in that prior year performance will continue to improve. But there is no doubt that we have a budget gap that we're working to close, and certainly hope that will continue to improve as the year goes on. Thank you all for your continued efforts. Greatly appreciate everyone's dedication to PHS and making us better together. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.